Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, we're doing our mini episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin. It's a mini. A mini means nothing other than I play a game where I don't ask for questions and I fits in the schedule differently. So.
Oh, I thought this was an actual episode.
No.
Oh, wow, so did I.
It doesn't. I mean, to be honest, the only thing it affects is the fact of how I do my schedule. That's all.
Jesus.
But this is mini 50, you see, so it's a special episode. So I wanted to do RPG.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, this is mini 50. I've been purposely doing other stuff to get this set there. I mean, it really means nothing. I had a fucking 3-hour mini talking about BioShock before. Mini means nothing.
True.
BioShock feels.
Forgot how long we went on I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream.
Oh, yeah, that was a mini, too, and we went like almost 2 hours. So, hey, time means nothing. But who is with me tonight?
Hey, it's Nate, and I'm here to kill chaos.
Hey, it's Barry, and I might be Chaos, or I might be Jack, or I don't know who I am.
You can be whoever you want to be. You get to pick your name and your class.
And this is Richard Sampson from... Get away from me, you damn giant! Hey, how is Richard Sampson from the YouTube channel? Jesus Christ! It's like I'm going through a hall full of these... God damn it! Things, and, you might know me from playthroughs on my YouTube channel, Rich Gale, and fics that go up everywhere on like fanfiction, comic find it. Jesus Christ, there was another one there. Anyhow, and also from episodes of this where somebody else does an even longer intro than I do. So.
I take it that was all you running into random battles, huh?
Yes, in one small hallway.
Yeah, no, that happened a lot when I was playing too. So we are here to talk about, as I already kind of said, Final Fantasy 1. But we all played different. I think we all played like a couple different versions too.
Yes, I mean, I played the Game Boy Advance version. I'm eventually going to play the PC version. I know I've also tried to, and long ago, I tried the NES version on an emulator.
I played the GBA version for this. Nate, which one did you play?
I played the Pixel Remaster on PlayStation.
Okay. And Barry?
I've done the NES, some of the PS1, and my main playthroughs have usually been the PSP version. So all different.
Ooh, I played the GBA version once before. I've never really messed with the NES version because as I probably said on the show, I don't really care for NES that much.
Well, NES is the worst version because of quality of life issues.
I just don't care for the NES in general. That's my
it was a little bit harder on that version.
Well, I'm a SNES kid. I grew up with the SNES. That was my first system, so that's my love. So I don't have like the nostalgic as much for NES. But I did see this as a kid on the NES because I had friends that played it. I'm like, why'd you play that? We could play 6 or 3 as I knew it. I was like, this is way better. So, yeah.
Well, I know I had both. I had the original strategy guide that Nintendo released for it.
Yep.
One of those special things. Nintendo Power.
So, Barry, what is your history with this game?
So, this game, my history was, I got the NES late. I got the NES in 1994 for Christmas. I had played the NES plenty before, but it was always at friends' houses. So, by the time I got one, I went to Toys R Us, and the selection of games was significantly less. It allowed me to enjoy a lot of late releases that most people missed, like Gargoyle's Quest 2 and Mega Man 6. But Final Fantasy was one of the games that was still there. And I was like, this looks cool. The artwork of the globe with the 4 heroes in it. And I like, this looks really cool. Let me get this. And it was unlike anything I'd experienced at that point. And, I had the big, thick book. And I was like, this is an adventure. I knew it was something special. The poster that had like all the enemy, the world map on one side and all the enemies on the other. And I was like just fascinated by it. And of course, the game kicks my ass. It is not an easy game, the NES version. I know some people you say, I can do it, no problem. But, when you're in 6th grade, the game is very hard. And the quality of life stuff that we take for granted now, man, like MP wasn't a thing in the NES version. You had only had so many of each spell you can cast and of each tier. And if you both attack the same enemy and the first one killed it, ineffective. I hated that. That was so annoying. And other things like having there was no life spell. You had to go back to a church to raise. And it was a lot of lack of quality of life in the first game. And it was fun. And I wound up beating it with my friends, all working together and conquering it. Later on, when the PS1 version came out, I messed with it, but I didn't play as much because I was more excited for the Final Fantasy 2 because we didn't gotten that one yet. So I got to play that, and then I had the itch to play it again, and I just got a PSP a little while, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this. And the PSP is beautiful, and to play it with all those quality of life updates, man, that made the game 100 times easier. But what a joyous adventure, and it's still timeless to this day. And I guess, if you will, I kind of did Stranger of Paradise, which is a Final Fantasy
I know a version of it, I think, right?
Which was my joke about Jack.
Oh,
So, yeah.
Okay, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, that was a Stranger of Paradise joke. But yeah, so I did that too, which is a really weird retelling of Final Fantasy 1 that involves all the other Final Fantasies. It is really bizarre.
I want to play it someday.
It's awesome.
It is a lot of fun.
Involves all the other Final Fantasies?
Yeah, every level is based on another Final Fantasy.
Huh.
I've heard things about it. It looks. I mean, someday I'll get to it.
And there's like DLC that has Gilgamesh and DLC that has the Emperor from Final Fantasy 2. And
Yeah, as I say, there's a Final Fantasy 2 DLC that I want to get to one day.
you know
Now,
what?
if you would have said Emperor Gaston, you would have had me sold.
No, 6. No, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, not 6. But what annoys me about the DLC, and I haven't done it, of that game is you need to play on the hardest difficulty to enjoy it. Like, you can't play on the easiest difficulty and enjoy the DLC. I'm like, that's kind of messed up. So I haven't done it.
What would the DLC for Final Fantasy 2 be?
It would the Emperor shows up. It's in Stranger of Paradise. You have to fight the Emperor.
Oh,
appears.
okay,
It's all based on FF2.
Okay. Yeah, I'm playing through FF2 right now. I'm actually close to ending it.
Pandemonium.
That's the one of. I love all the Final Fantasies that I've played through, the first 7, but replay-wise, 2 is sort of on the bottom, but I still have a fondness. I mean, I did help in cracking one of its mini-game. It's a matching mini-game.
I thought 2 was unique. I like 2. 2 followed the same pattern that so many other NES games did at that time, where we did one thing with the first game and let's change it up with the second. Castlevania 2, Zelda 2, Mario 2.
Yeah.
So Final Fantasy 2 is the same boat.
Yeah, well, Mario 2 was a totally different story, too.
Yes, of course. It was Doki Doki Panic. But my point is, it was still a change up for us in America before we got Lost Levels and knew the truth.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Nate, what is your history with this game?
I first played through this in 2020. I played the GBA version, and I had a lot of fun. It always kind of blew my mind how much story there actually is in this game, like just talking to the random townsfolk. I don't know if that's like something that was in the NES version, or if that's just something they added with the GBA version, but playing the Pixel remaster, like all that's still there. I still think it's like a really good fantasy story, especially for like the first one of these,
The story was still there in the NES.
Was it? Yeah, that's cool. Like, that's really cool. But so played that and then did the Pixel remaster version, which I think I prefer over the GBA version because it brings back you don't have MP. It's like the NES version. Like you have.
Is it?
Yeah,
tiers. Oh no,
it's set tiers, but then they add in like ethers and stuff, so you can carry ethers with you that like restore some spell casts.
Good. Yeah, I don't think there were no ethers. I don't think in the original. You had to like go back to the inn and rest. It was so annoying.
Yeah. I was googling that too because I was like, I wonder if like with ethers being there if that was normal, but it's not. But yeah, so I think it's a really nice balance between like, hey, this is what it was originally, and then here's like some really nice quality of life items that you can use, and then like
with ethers I can accept it, but
apparently there's a subset of people on the internet who are upset about it. And I was like, why? Like, what a dumb thing to just don't use them.
As long as they're angry that they're in there. Yeah, you don't have to use them. What the hell? The ineffective's gone, right? Like,
yes, they took out. Yeah, they took out ineffective as well, which is awesome.
So that is. I replayed Golden Sun recently because they put on NSO, and Golden Sun, both the first 2 games use that. They have the same ineffective thing. Although instead of ineffective, they auto defend. Yeah, it doesn't automatically target the next enemy, and it's so annoying. I'm like, oh my god, I'm having flashbacks of Final Fantasy 1 again. But at least they defend, but it's annoying.
Still, it's a wasted attack. See, I played Golden Sun 1 back in the day, and I loved it, and I don't remember that. But yeah, that's crazy that they did that.
But you know what? With NSO though, it's kind of nice. So when that happens, if you want, you could actually rewind, and then say, "All right, well now I'm just going to have this person choose a different attack." A little more cumbersome, but you can do it.
Yeah,
you're making me want to get back to replaying that again.
It's easier on NSO for save states and rewind, though.
The fun in that. I still prefer it on the Game Boy Advance.
You don't have to use it. It's there. It's an option.
Yeah. Are you the one writing all those comments that are like Square made it too easy? They put ethers in the game.
No.
Just joking. Richard, did you ever play, like, what is your history with it?
No, the first time let's face it, I was in high school when it came out. Just getting ready to go to college. And, around that time. But I never got overly into it. I mean, the only way I ever played it prior to getting it on Game Boy Advance was that I would play it on an emulator. And I didn't get too far in it because mainly I was focusing on other things at the time, and just it fell by the wayside. You get to play it for a certain time and you get away from the game for a while. You don't want to pick up where you've left off because it's been so long. You want to just restart the whole thing over. But when I got it on the Game Boy Advance, I think that was Dawn of Souls, I think. Yeah. Yep. And that came out, I think I want to say 2001, but I think it was 2002. So it would be, something I'd play between, time with my wife, who was then right at that time maybe was girlfriend, then fiance. But it was a game that I enjoyed playing through it, especially with the look that the Game Boy Advance had. I mean, yeah, I knew about you only have so many spells you can do at this level, and I'm glad that wasn't in there. It had an MP, but you still only had a number of spells you could take, so you had to pick and choose wisely what you grabbed and what you bought, which I like that. I mean, I've played games where you had, you can use this weapon this many times before you have to get a new one. So I like that. But of course, I had all the Nintendo Power issues, had the strategy guide. I still have I have the strategy guide for the Game Boy Advance. And I loved how there was certain things that was specific for certain character types. I loved the world. This is also at a time where I started really getting good at those sliding puzzles. So I could go through that 15 puzzle and really rack up, goodies, which was a nice little change they put in, I guess. But I also saw those extra dungeons, and as I'm looking through, I'm like, wait a minute. I know most of these things are in the SNES games. Of course, there's also the other plus in here that there weren't any of those damn Marlboros.
Oh, yeah, they weren't in this game.
No, they didn't show up until 2.
Yep, those bastards.
I hate them.
Exactly. They are bastards. It's like one attack, boom, you're screwed.
Yeah.
But yeah, this game was the story is very intriguing. And of course also the story of how it got the game and the series got its name too.
I do like that.
And then you think, wait, there's 2, 3. Excuse me, that was false advertising. This isn't the Final Fantasy.
To be fair, there is a Final Fight 2 and 3 and Streetwise and all that, so...
Hey, there's a Final Fight Brawl, I think the name of it, or Final Fight... No, wait, you're never mind, you're Streetwise. Yeah, that's the PS2 one, right?
Yep, that was a PS2 one.
And that was the last one I think they made.
Yeah, but they also used the Final Fantasy name to sell other stuff over here in America.
Yep. Well... Really only one other thing, the Saga series, because technically the Mana series is Final Fantasy Gaiden over there, so it is a spin-off. So when it came over as Final Fantasy Adventure, it's not totally lying.
Yeah. Mind you, I love the Final Fantasy, those first 3 Saga games. I'm still pissed we never got the DS version of number 2.
Square didn't give us a lot of stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I've been finding that out through emulation. But I did want to say my history with Final Fantasy... with this game in particular, like I saw it on NES, didn't give a shit about it, even though I love Final Fantasy, loved all of them, 2/4, Mystic Quest, great game, 3/6, like those are the ones that I loved back then, and I actually didn't play this, like I bought the PS1 Origin Collection, I think I played it, I don't know if I even beat it, I didn't really care for it, and then when I first got a DS, I ended up buying, because I never had a GBA, I bought the Dawn of Souls collection, and I beat 1 and 2 back then on that. And that was my first time beating those games. And then I did buy the Pixel Remaster, but I just couldn't do it and play the GBA, because the GBA looks better to me.
And you wanted to play the extra dungeons.
Which I didn't do, by the way. But yes.
All that.
I got them. I saw them, and I'm like, I'm good. Time to beat the game and be done. Life got ahead of me.
Yeah, life does do that. I mean, you were fussing about... I mentioned the extra dungeons and not knowing if they were in Pixel, and then we got confirmation they aren't there, and you're like, yeah, I'm playing the GBA so I can play those dungeons, and you never did it.
I gotta say, the GBA on the Steam Deck, like, because the Steam Deck just magnified the screen, like, I could see all the pixels, and I actually really like that. I could literally see all the square pixels, and I'm like, this is, like, awesome. I don't know. I love the graphics on the Steam Deck playing the GBA version. It was a great experience.
We should also mention the one other thing, though, that this had. And that was the fact that this Final Fantasy was also, quote, mentioned on the Captain N cartoon.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was. It was like one of the last of the original episodes that was part of the 3rd season. I think it was the last one.
I forgot that existed, and I want to keep it that way. So I should ask, because I don't know if we mentioned it, what classes we all played as for our team. Since in this game you can pick from different classes and you have a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Rich, what did you have?
I'd have to get let me take a look. I still have I shared the picture on the group.
You did, but that was a week ago, sir.
Yeah, I know. I have to find it now. Okay, I think was the Knight, the Ninja Master, the White Wizard, and the Black Wizard. I think those were what I had started with. Because I always like to start with... I'm looking at the wrong one now. I was looking at Blake's picture. It's a shame that he isn't joining us for this. But yeah, I
can come back to you.
Yeah, you come back to me so I can...
Okay, I'll do mine. I had Knight, Monk, White Mage, and Black Mage, and that's the team I've used. If I beat this game 3 times, I use that same team all 3 times because to me that is the correct, in quotations, team for some reason. I don't know. That's just what I like. Oh, what about you, Nate?
So I was a little weird boy this time, and I went Warrior, Monk. I think his upgraded class is called Master, and then I did Red Mage and Black Mage. I just forewent a White Mage. Don't need them.
I think I went because I'm looking up all the classes and how they. Okay, so yeah, I went with Fighter, Thief, White Mage, Black Mage, which then promoted to Knight, Ninja, Black Wizard, White Wizard.
Okay, and what about you, Barry?
I did Fighter or Warrior, now Black Belt or now Monk, and then I did White Mage and Red Mage.
Oh, and you'll appreciate this joke, Barry. I'm not sure who else will, but when I was typing it out, when I typed out my team, I typed in WAR, all in capitals, /BLM, /WHM, /MNK.
Oh, yeah, that's the official abbreviations. That's an 11 thing right there.
Yep. That's where it came from, and I even called my monk Gelka because of...
Yeah, there you go. It's an 11 abbreviations, and they use it in 14 as well.
Oh, man, there are times where I think about 11, I'm like, part of me wants to play it, go back and play it somehow without having to be online.
Well, you can't. There's private servers for 11.
Yeah, I thought about it. I'm not going to do it, but I thought about it.
Isn't it on Steam? Can't you play it on Steam?
It's PC. I don't know if it's Steam.
I don't think it's on Steam, but I
think it's just PC.
But I just sometimes I think about it because I know you can solo a lot of the game later on. They change things, but yeah, I don't know if I can ever go back to it. It was a game, but that's not what you're here for. But okay, I just had to make that joke because I didn't know who else would get that joke. But you would understand it. You were there.
I was there from launch, which was actually 20 years ago last month. 20 years ago. It was March of 2004, and I was like, oh my god, it's been 2 decades since I started at 11 and at launch. Holy crap.
God, we're old.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I'm one of the younger ones. Out of us right now, I'm pretty sure. So.
I'm probably the oldest.
I think I'm the youngest because that came out on 360. I think
it did later on. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing it at GameStop, and I was talking to the guy, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know they made a new Final Fantasy. And he goes, that one's just online. And I was like, I don't have that. So never mind.
Yeah, it launched on 360 later on with Treasures of Art Ergon, which was the third expansion.
I guess this playthrough, since I am much more like, I guess, because since I've been doing the show, I examine games more than I review them, in quotations. So I paid more attention. Like, I was surprised how well I felt this game flowed for something that's so old. Like, it felt like it was very good about kind of taking you where to go next. I mean, again, I wasn't playing the NES version, but no, it just felt good.
Yeah, this definitely has that replay value
Oh, yes.
where you feel like, and the variety was, what team do you choose? Do you choose this team? Do you make sure? I mean, let's face it, you have to have at least one wizard in your group or one mage.
Well, you don't have to.
No, you can beat this game with every combination, right?
Hmm?
Well, if you're going to say it that way, let's face it, that's about possibility of six to the fourth.
Yeah, they actually balanced it well enough that everything could be tackled. In fact, I think Nintendo Power had a challenge if you could beat it with 4 white mages, and people did it. So if you could beat it with 4 white mages, you could beat it with anything.
That is a fair statement. I wouldn't want to play this as 4 white mages. I mean, I did love my white mage in this game, but I wouldn't want 4. Also, my white mage was named off of my girlfriend at the time, her 11 character from back then, because that's what it reminded me. I was like, I need a name for a white mage. Oh, she was a white mage. I'll just use her character name. I was in 11 mood when I saw the classes.
Well, if you notice in 11, when you start 11, you can start with 6 classes, base classes. And those are the same 6 classes that are in Final Fantasy 1 from the very beginning.
Oh.
Warrior, Monk, Thief, Red Mage, White Mage, and Black Mage are the 6 starter classes in Final Fantasy 11.
I forgot that.
And that's purposely done because of Final Fantasy 1.
Yep, and this was also the first Final Fantasy game we had Sid in, too.
Well, no. Actually, Final Fantasy 2 was the first with Sid. However, they retroactively made Sid dead in 1 as a part of a gravestone. But in the original release, Sid was not there. Sid didn't appear first until 2.
And I think in one of the gravestones in the original version, it had reference to Dragon Quest, correct?
Yeah, in the original one, it was Here Lies Erdrick, which is a reference to Dragon Quest Hero, like the main hero. And then for the North American NES release, instead, they changed it to Here Lies Link, referencing Zelda, because Nintendo published the game here.
And guess what? On the PlayStation version, it still says Here Lies Link.
Does it? That's fantastic.
It does. And I took a screenshot, so I was like, that is amazing.
That's cool.
They never changed it.
All right,
that's more fitting. More people would know Link than Eldrick.
Oh, yeah. Of course. That was the whole idea, because Dragon Quest with Dragon Warrior, which also Nintendo published, came over, but they figured more people would know Link, and they wanted to promote their own characters. Yeah, the Sid thing is interesting because they were retroactively put him back into 1, or put him into 1 as the engineer that was dead. So he's technically in all the games, but he's not originally from 1.
Fair enough.
See, you learned something new. Like, I was just surprised as I played through this game, like how much there was to it. Because one thing, like when I first started, like, this will take me no time at all. Like, I'm just gonna run through this, and it took me longer than I expected. And I did grind a ton, not because I had to, but because I just enjoyed it so much. Like, I really love grinding in old RPGs. You put on a podcast, you put on something on YouTube you don't care about that much, you just grind for hours. Wonderful experience.
Also good for those quiet moments.
Yes, but there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I would start it up sometimes, put it down, close the thing, just let it be, because I didn't have to worry, about being attacked when you're just standing there.
To go back to what I was going to say, then I screwed myself and went somewhere else. Like the vehicles, that's what surprised me. Like, this game has a boat, this game has a canoe. I completely forgot the game had a canoe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think canoe ever comes back.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
In 2, it does, I think, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I think they switched it out for a snowmobile.
No, there is a canoe in 2.
Okay.
Snowmobile's only for a certain area.
I would assume.
The field area.
Yeah, and that's the area where you can do the matching game.
I do want to play 2 now. By the way, this made me want to play 2.
I loved the canoe because the canoe is the first one you get, and you're always restricted by the rivers, and it was always annoying. And when you finally got it, you felt like free, especially because this was the first type like this game, and it was the first entry. I was like, oh my god, I could finally go past those rivers, and like what's on the other side? It was like an adventure. It was uncharted territory. So it was always thrilling as a kid to get the canoe.
And this is one of the first RPGs we got back then too.
Yeah, this and Dragon Warrior and Phantasy Star. The first one was out.
Yeah. I forget about that because I never played any of them really.
Yeah,
I forget they exist.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Dragon Warrior free with a Nintendo Power subscription?
Yes, because the RPGs were not big here, and they were worried that people wouldn't like them. So Nintendo published and gave out the first Dragon Quest called Dragon Warrior with every Nintendo Power subscriber to get them interested, and then they obviously brought 2, 3, and 4 over. So Nintendo really pushed for RPGs to be big here, and they definitely helped.
Yeah,
and I am thankful for that because that is my favorite genre.
Yeah, it does. It really did help. I mean, we got the games, especially on the home systems, which really opened it up for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, this game I'm sure turned so many people, into RPG gamers who kept playing for years and years. I mean, this game didn't do it for me, but this series did it for me. I mean, Mystic Quest is one of my first RPGs I ever played, baby's first RPG, and I fucking love that game.
That's a good game. It just gets a better rep.
It does. I also have an episode about it too.
The funny thing is this is a game when I got this, I played this before Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest because I didn't have Nintendo Power subscription because I didn't have an NES. And I was in a store one day with my uncle, and they had, near the register, they always have some things there for you to grab. And they had Dragon Warrior there for $5. It was like clearanced out kind of deal. And I was like, ooh, a Nintendo game. And my uncle's like, oh, you want it? It's $5, whatever. So I bought it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is a Final Fantasy ripoff. and I put it in, I played. I was like, this is a Final Fantasy ripoff because I had played Final Fantasy first, and I didn't realize Dragon Quest came first. And looking back, I'm like, boy, no internet. I didn't look at the copyright or anything. That was just the way I was thinking. What I experienced first came first as a kid. And I was like, oh, well, I was an idiot, but yeah.
Hey, at least, that was kid logic. The problem is when you have kid logic when you're in your 50s, when the internet exists, then there's a problem. But that's
exactly.
But no, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I know for the longest time, I thought like certain games were developed by different companies that were just the publisher, things like that. Like I remember making comments like that and other dumb things.
Yeah, because you didn't even know what a publisher was, or
I didn't either. I'm like, oh, that's the name of the box.
Yeah, exactly. That's who made it. I mean, there's tons of Nintendo published games that Nintendo doesn't own, like these two, for example. Apparently, Nintendo wanted to buy Final Fantasy, from what I heard. Like they wanted to actually buy the rights, like own the IP and everything, and Square held out and said no.
Man, I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. When 7 came along and they found out Nintendo was still going to go with the cartridge with the new system, that's when their split happened from Nintendo, which made many of us think we'd never get Super Mario RPG.
I want to see an alternate universe where FF7 comes out on the 64.
Oh, man.
That has to have some charm to it, just like the PlayStation version of FF7.
I honestly don't know. I mean, let's face it, they had to put Final Fantasy VII on 3 CDs.
Yeah, but also some wizards got Resident Evil 2 onto a one Nintendo 64 cartridge.
So,
yes, but I think they had to cut stuff out too.
No,
they did not.
No, they didn't. In fact, they actually added files.
Yeah,
to hint towards Resident Evil 0.
Didn't know that.
Yep.
It's insane.
Here's the thing: systems. If you know how to operate the inners of any system, you could do wonders. If you don't, and you wind up doing like a bad port, it's not optimized. It shows. Look at Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch, for example. That team did not know Switch architecture. But then look at what Panic Button did with Doom and Doom Eternal and Witcher 3. The Switch could handle it. It just has to be optimized, and you have to take time to craft it. The same with the 64 or any system. It just takes time, and sometimes you're right. Things do have to get cut. So I agree with Nate. I would love to see that universe. In fact, I would be happy in that universe. And as an 11 player, I'm sure Mike has seen this too. That means that universe, their 11 didn't have 1,000 people named XX Cloud XXX or XX Sephiroth XXX, and it's a much better place.
Yes. I mean, I also forget how important the crystals were, like in this game, because it's all about you and the crystals, and Like that was a Final Fantasy thing that kind of goes away. Well, my favorite. Don't talk about the crystals. So, but 6. And a few others.
Actually,
It's funny
crystals
you
got-
mentioned crystals. In the original version, they were orbs. That's how
Yeah.
we knew them.
Oh, yeah,
They were orbs.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah,
It
they were.
was like the 4 orbs, not the crystals at all.
Ah, that's funny.
Were they shaped like crystals?
No, they were circles.
Okay, well that's good.
They changed the shape to orbs instead of crystals. So
That's
when
wild.
crystals came on later on, I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's like the orbs. And then I realized what they did in the translation. I'm like, oh, or the localization.
I wonder if they were crystals in
now
Japan.
I want.
They just couldn't do the shapes.
No,
now I
no.
want.
Capcom. They had the shapes.
Oh, okay.
Now I want alternate universe FF16 where the tagline is "The legacy of the orbs has gone on long enough."
Yeah, there's a lot of things they did in that localization that obviously, and a lot of the early localizations. I mean, Final Fantasy 4 or 2, had a lot of infamous stuff with like the spoony bard. But a lot of people don't talk about the item, the knife. The knife is an item in Final Fantasy 4 that does 9,999 damage, and it's a fantastic use item because it works anywhere. But in the original translation that we got on the Super Nintendo, the knife is too violent. So it was changed to the spoon. So you threw a spoon at any boss to do 9,999 damage.
That's amazing.
Oh my god.
I love 4 so much.
Yeah, 4 is great.
So there's a lot of those weird things. Yeah, you could look through a list of like all the changes they made. It's fascinating.
I was just gonna say one thing that I think is really cool that Square did, just even on the NES, was like to differentiate themselves from Dragon Warrior. They were just like, hey, we're gonna have like you can see your characters in battle,
Yeah.
and that's
I
just
love
like that's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
This has defined me, unfortunately, for RPGs. When I was younger, I was a snob, and I'm like, well, I can't see my characters. I ain't gonna play this. Bleh. So I didn't play Dragon Quest or Phantasy Star for a long time because I was a snob. I have remedied that a bit. Since then, I got over that. Like, I will play RPGs now, like Earthbound and other things that, where I don't see my character. But when I was a kid, if I couldn't see them like a Final Fantasy, I was like, nope, not gonna play you.
Like I was the exact same way, where I was just like, why would I want to play a game where I can't see my character attack?
Well, and even in some of the early RPGs that we had over here, like Bard's Tale,
Yeah.
you couldn't see your characters unless you physically looked at them. And then you'd get a generic basic image because you couldn't pick genders in that game. But you could see only one foe at a time either. Like if you are you're attacked by 5 skeletons, 5 goblins, and 5 kobolds. Well, the only one you see is the one that's in the foremost, and once you wipe them out, now you're going to see this one and then this one.
See that? I didn't like those early stuff. So.
Yeah, well, that's what they had to work with graphic-wise. I mean, even now, even in the pixelated version, you only have to fight the enemies that fit on the screen.
You see, I think that's why I really enjoyed the GBA version. I wanted to play the Pixel remaster. I bought it, but I didn't. I looked at it. I watched the video. I'm like, this is ugly to me. It just didn't. I'm like, and then plus I wanted the extra dungeons. I thought.
Yeah. That boggles me. Why is there all the GBA content from 1 through 6 that was exclusive? Why was it not brought into the Pixel remastered? It's so stupid. Like
This
make this the definitive
supposedly
version.
reason is because they wanted to give you the original vision. And you can't see the face I'm making, but that to me it felt like we're gonna sell you DLC later. I don't know, but it bothered me because put the extra stuff in. Why not? It already exists. It's not that hard to put it in there.
I don't know. I think that's a great idea myself. The original version.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as someone who's like played a little bit of the extra dungeons in 1 and 2, don't miss them. Like if they had put them in with the Pixel remaster, I wouldn't have touched them because like they're fine, but it's just fan service and
it's just more game. I mean, at least in this one, when I looked up, it was just you fight. You gotta go through it 4 times to fight all the bosses, and I was running out of time, and I'm like, I'm just done.
Yeah,
depending on
it's
the dungeon.
just like it's a value. I guess it's just extra value, but like I respect that Square is just like, no, we're gonna give you what the base, what the original games were, and not any of the extra stuff.
But at that point, the content exists. So what they can do, and we've seen other games do it, where they give you a mode at the beginning. original or new? Like, how many games have like original or remix or whatever? And they could have just done that in the start, and then everybody wins because the content exists. And some games have, like, Final Fantasy VI has new summons and stuff, and like that's cool, but then you lose them.
Really good when it comes to that extra content.
Yeah. And then you lose all that content. So even if you say, well, you know what, I didn't enjoy the dungeons, that's fine and that's fair. But to say, because I didn't enjoy the dungeons, therefore nobody can enjoy the dungeons is kind of weird.
It does take a lot out of my day when I have to go to everybody's house and like slap their hands and I go, don't touch those dungeons.
Exactly. So options are always a good choice. I don't understand why some people say, like, oh no, you shouldn't be able to play the game you want and you shouldn't be able to enjoy it the same,
People are stupid.
It's like button mapping, camera control. Those are all great modern quality of life things. Well, so is content that already exists.
Yeah, wouldn't have been that hard. I feel
here's what it is. I think part of it was this: adding the extra dungeons in the Game Boy Advance version was to help, bring in not only the new fans or new players to the game, but also bring in the older ones that might have said, "Oh, I've already beaten it on the NES. Why would I want to beat it again?" And like extra dungeons, it just piques your interest. And I was also just looking through it in the guide, which you can't see because there's no camera. But each of them was unlocked in order of when you encounter and restore the crystals in that game. Each one had a set number of levels. The first, like Earth Shrine, 5 levels. That's why you have to do it 5 times to beat all 4 bosses. Hellfire, I think that was the second one. That one you had to beat twice to encounter all the bosses.
Oh, you see, I didn't read that far. I just read a little bit, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm not interested." And then threw the guide away and moved on.
Grotto, which is the water one, you only have to really go through it once, but you hit the bosses at certain markers, like every 5 levels. That's where you're going to run into a boss, and the last level has 2 bosses on it that you can fight. And of course, the last one, the Whisper Wind Shrine or whatever they called it, because these were big. These were big, and yeah, it was. I had the right page open in here and I lost the name. Oh, that's the Hellfire. Let's say Life Spring Grotto, and of course, I'm not finding the name. But
one thing I miss about old RPGs. Maybe this is a newer one. I just don't play enough newer games. I really like going to a town and there being some issue, like when you go to the Earth Town and they're like, oh, and they tell you about the vampire, and then you get to the Lich. Like, that just amuses me so much to be able to go help a town. I don't know why, but it just makes me happy.
It gives a reason.
Yeah, it just always made me happy.
I mean, at least these are a little bit easier than trying to nab an almanac page that's flying away in another game I'm playing right now. Mike's going to just go, huh?
I think I know what you're talking about, but...
Thank you. But
was it a vampire in the Nintendo version?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that wasn't.
I don't know why. That just the first time I played it, I just laughed. I was like, a vampire?
I'm surprised Nintendo let that go. But I guess vampires are fine, as long as it wasn't. It would not have had a cross on it. Ooh.
Well, they had Castlevania,
Yeah.
So they were like, yeah, kill all the vampires you want.
I mean, this is much of, also they do fall into a fantasy game like Dungeons and Dragons and an the RPG scenario. They're accepted creatures. And probably that's why we eventually get Marlboros in this game, because they can't get a damn beholder.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons would have something to say about
that.
Well, yeah, they would. I mean, the beholder has become sort of the mascot for D&D.
Well, that's also because Eye of the Beholder was such a popular game.
Yeah.
Both PC and Super Nintendo.
Also was on the cover of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons book that I used to have. Monster Manual.
Yeah,
it was
on the original supplemental for D&D, Greyhawk's manual.
I used to just sit and stare at the Monster Manual all the time. Like, this is so cool.
You know how many times I actually put on a Beholder lore just to head off to sleep?
I'm assuming a lot by that sentence.
You mentioned staring at the Monster Manual. For those that had the NES, we got that poster, and especially early on when it was very difficult, like just staring at the different creatures that you could fight later on, and like obviously like Lich and of course Chaos was on there. it was really like fascinating to see the evolution of all the creatures and how much more difficult they're going to get when you start off with just goblins and stuff. I'm like, oh, now look at where it is. So I can kind of sympathize with that with this game, just staring ahead at all the creatures.
I like all four of what you fight. I like the Kraken a lot. I like whatever the fire one was. They just
Or fiends.
they look they look so cool. And I also have a weak spot for the four fiends because of a certain game. So
Final Fantasy IV.
I have a real weak spot for
remembering
that.
now who I mean, I remember that the Fiend of Fire, she had a different name.
It was Carrie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carrie, and I don't know why. I mean, unless it was just to avoid any links to questionable stuff. I mean, let's face it. The Lich is a classic enemy that we know about from Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't know if it's in any culture to begin with. The Kraken, everybody knows about the Kraken by now because the Kraken's been in lore for a long time. Tiamat, both legendary in D&D, but is also the goddess in I think Babylonian mythology.
Well, Final Fantasy loves to pull from mythology, which is actually how I learned a lot of my mythology. I'm like, oh, that name's from Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
You know.
But Marilith, that's one I was not necessarily familiar with. And yeah, it says where did that come from?
I took it, and maybe this is just because I'm a big nerd, but I thought it was like a Stephen King reference.
Oh, here's the thing.
Carrie starts that fire, you know?
That's what I thought too.
Now I'm seeing here on the Final Fantasy Wiki. Marilith, also known as Carrie, a mistranslation of Kali.
Oh.
Kali makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So that's how we got the name. That it was originally supposed to be Kali, but of course, mistranslations happened back then.
I thought you were going to say it was a mistranslation of Marilith, and I was like, how did they mess that up so bad?
And that's probably why they changed it to Marilith now, because, of all the, how some cultures don't like seeing bad representations of figures.
Well, I mean, just Googling Marilith, it's a Hindu god with the body of a snake, so I guess it looks more like what the the art for that looked like.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems fitting. I don't know enough about Marilith. I mean, I feel like I'm somewhat educated with Greek, or not Greek, but I mean like mythology in general and religions and things. But from the sound of what it sounds accurate.
Small correction. I'm sorry. It's inspired by Hindu mythology, but it's from D&D.
Oh.
So maybe they just renamed it because they didn't want to get sued. Yeah, they didn't want to get sued.
And it's probably also, looking at a picture of Kali. Isn't that what that's also what the Molaram worshipped in Temple of Doom.
So it was.
Oh, okay. I'll have more appreciation for that movie when I get to it again someday.
Yeah. See, she is okay. Kali is the feminine form of Kala, epithet of Shiva, and thus the consort of Shiva. The homonym Kali, time, is distinct from Kala, black, but these became associated through popular etymology. She is called Kali Mata, the Dark Mother, and also Kali, which can be read either as a proper name or a description. So, being the goddess of destruction and death, as well as goddess of time, change, creation, power, mother goddess, what we're seeing is the negative. And they don't necessarily want too much emphasis on the negative unless you accept the other aspects with it. That's how I'm seeing it.
Welcome to Mythologies My Mom Found with Richard.
One thing, because I just want to talk about, like, I'm a sucker for stories in games. That's like my in for video games is stories. But I really, really like this game's world. There's a few standouts for me, and one is I don't remember what town it is, but you go to it's the town where you find the submarine, and everyone in the town is like, legs are cool, like, those are your legs, and they just keep mentioning legs, and you're like, you guys are fucking weird. And then you find out that they're mermaids, and they just gained legs, and I was like, that's so cool. That's such a nice little cool world building thing. And then the fact that even in this very first game, there's the sci-fi, for lack of a better term, twist at the end, where you find out there's the Lufenians, who are from the sky and they have robots, and like there's technology that isn't just medieval. Like, I think that's awesome.
That's that's pretty much, I think, been somewhat of a, well, in all their games, you see a nice mix of classical and futuristic in all the games in the series. But you start off with being, you still use swords mostly through the game. But yeah, the inclusion of the scientific aspect, sci-fi elements, robots, war mechs, a certain monstrosity that you can only encounter 1 out of 64 times crossing a narrow bridge.
That guy,
that
guy sucks. That guy is nothing.
He just wants to give you a hug.
Everybody in the world is like, oh, be careful encountering war mech. It took me fucking an hour and a half to encounter this dude. And then he dies, like, just so fast. I was like, where's the danger? Where is this, big super boss I was led to believe I was going to fight?
Well, it's like...
Was there a trophy for it?
Nothing. There was a trophy for it.
Yeah, okay. I was
like,
why did he do this?
How much grinding did you do beforehand, though?
I was already level 99. I got to level 99.
No, that's why.
I got to level 99 looking for him, like going across that stupid bridge. And I was like, he was the last monster, like the last entry into the bestiary I needed for the trophy. And I was literally like, I'm just going to go to bed and like start it again tomorrow. And then he showed up and I was like, oh, and I like kind of hunkered down. I started like, casting like haste and temper, and I was like, oh, I got to get like prepared. I got to cast the item that like gives everybody invis. And then he died, like, on the second hit from my master. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like...
No, it's like when I finally beat Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII. I mean, like, I've been building my characters up. They're up to, like, maybe level 80, close to 90 now. I go to fight Sephiroth because last time I fought him many, many moons ago, back when dinosaurs ruled the earth, I was not as powerful, and I'm getting my ass kicked, and this battle is taking the better part of 2 hours. And of course, when the computer's not necessarily handling it, or can barely handle it, and his frickin' summons takes about 5 minutes to play out.
But you're enthralled for those 5 minutes because you're like,
oh yeah,
like,
that
Einstein exists in this universe. Like.
Hey, his special summon supernova. Let's face it, that was a cinematic experience. But yeah, I mean, you've leveled up to a point where, I mean, even now when I'm playing Final Fantasy II, my characters have like 3,000 hit points, and on average, I'm wiping out these tough creatures in two strikes. And like, yeah, I like it when it's this good. I mean, I got one extra character, and his hit points are nowhere near any of the others. So,
well, let me ask you a question. In Final Fantasy II, how much time did you spend beating the shit out of each other?
I haven't been doing that.
Oh wow, I'm shocked. That's
not
the
this
strategy.
time.
Kick the
Yeah,
crap
I know
out of
that's
each other.
the strategy. I did that for the Game Boy Advance one.
You're playing the Game Boy Advance one, okay?
No, I'm playing on.
Oh,
for my channel, I'm doing pixelated.
Okay, yeah, because they fixed the leveling. Well, they didn't fix the leveling, but they made leveling. They balanced it out more in the Pixel remaster.
Oh,
from what I was reading up on, yeah.
Because that was the strategy. You got yourself virtually dead, and then you cured, and your max HP went up, and your cure spells went up.
That and what I did on the GBA version back in 2020 for that was I equipped shields on everybody, and I went and found a goblin, and then just raised their evasion up. Like,
yeah, that's that's FF2 for you.
But back to FF1.
Well, what I wanted to mention about like the submarine, I had forgotten about the submarine, and you had to go and get the oxygen. I'm like, this is really cool. Like, I was having fun just running through that dungeon for a good while. I was just exploring and leveling, but I was like having a really good time with this game.
And
the water temple was very cool.
That's also the only dungeon I've ever come across where you're actually basically going in at the middle of it.
Yeah,
you go up to get certain things, but you go down for the boss.
And then to go back to your other thing that you mentioned earlier, because I wanted to get back, like for the stuff with the Luffy Islands or whatever, you can't understand them until you have to go find a Rosetta Stone and then talk to one NPC that then gives you the ability to talk to them. So then you can go to the town, I think to get a key item from them or something like that. That was actually, I liked it. I didn't mind these little Like I wasn't like, this is cool.
Some
yeah,
of the
the Pixel remaster for the Rosetta Stone, you do have to pay a $99 subscription fee, which I thought was kind of crazy.
Made by EA would have been in there somehow.
It's a subscription to Rosetta Stone, so you can
Yeah.
learn their language.
Right? Yeah, I had to take 6 months to learn it.
And then after you do that, someone just says you should have just gone on Duolingo and it was free.
Oh, that fucking owl was outside my window every night, and he was like, "How dare you!"
it's kind of
how many people listening will even remember what Rosetta Stone was.
I only know because I worked at Target when we sold it in like 2009. It took a
Every
second when you made the joke. I didn't know where you were going. And I'm like, oh yeah, that thing.
every time I hear Rosetta Stone, I know of what it is. I know what the Rosetta Stone is. I've never seen it in person. Probably should have insisted on going to
or
that
the real
museum.
one?
We're talking the program, not the real one.
I know you're talking about the program.
Okay.
I remember
Okay.
when the program came out. Like, oh yes, name it after the Rosetta Stone. Clever.
Now you got me curious. Where is the real Rosetta Stone? I typed that in, and then they're like, "Here, go to Rosetta Stone official site." So it's still around, by the way.
Well,
I mean, not the stone. I mean the website for the stupid software. So, the stone probably is around too. I just don't know where. I'm trying to figure that out.
I think it's in the London Museum. Don't ask how it got to the London Museum. They don't like
No
talking
idea.
about how
They stole
that
it.
got there.
Yeah.
Like I said, they don't like talking about it.
Hey, just like Indy said, they followed all the correct legal things, to get that. It's like the first Indiana Jones. Like when that one guy's like, "Oh, I'm sure he did everything by the book." Indy, yeah, sure, we won't ask any questions.
If we ever get to Final Fantasy IV on this podcast, I will have a very good Tower of Babel joke lined up.
All right, it will happen it will happen someday because I want to.
Yeah, it is. Tower of Babel is in that.
Before. But no, you go through. I mean, you had the tower, and then don't you go like to a giant airship or something for this? Like that's where the wind crystal was and time at.
Yeah, you have to go through the Mirage Tower and then you have to get the teleport stone to get to the. I think it's just the flying airship is what they call it.
Flying
It was
castle,
cool.
flying airship, something
Yeah.
like that. Let me look.
It was really cool to my 36-year-old brain. It was like, wow, that's awesome. I was surprised. Like, oh, I did not
Even-
remember any of this.
You know what was also neat? Well, this is in the Game Boy version. I don't know about the pixelated. They had cutscenes for certain things. Like when you go down to the Sunken Temple, there was a cutscene for that.
Which annoyed me. But yes.
I don't remember if there was one. Oh, it's called the Flying Fortress.
Oh yes. No, the Pixel remaster doesn't have the cutscenes. It does have that scene where when you're in the flying fortress and you look down and it shows you where all the crystal powers converge
Yeah,
to kind of tell you like, oh hey, after this you need to go back to the Chaos Shrine,
yeah.
which is a cool scene. Very
yeah.
dope. Yeah.
Seeing all those, you see it in the Game Boy Advance version too. It's like looks like it's flowing, just flowing. I don't know what it looks like on the Nintendo version.
I also completely forgot Bahamut was in this game. Like, I couldn't remember how you got your upgraded class. Like, I knew they were in the game, but I couldn't remember how it happened. I mean, when I was using my guys, like, oh, you go talk to Bahamut, and I'm like, this is cool. I was waiting to see when this happened. It happened about halfway through the game, which I thought was nice, too, because the upgraded classes are so awesome.
Oh yeah, much nicer.
They look a lot cooler.
Can anyone tell me what the lore reason is he needs a rat's tail before he gives you an upgrade?
I think it's just a sign of courage.
Oh, okay. I thought he just had a rat problem. He's like, just bring me a rat's tail. I fucking hate rats,
It's
dude.
supposed to be...
This was out before a plague tale.
I think it's supposed to just be that you're bringing something that you think is insignificant, but it just proves that you did this trial, I guess. The only thing I think of when I hear rat's tail is Final Fantasy IV had a rat's tail for somebody who wanted one for something, and it stuck with me because we couldn't figure it out when I was a kid. That's neither here nor there.
I think of the hairstyle every time I hear rat's tail.
That makes more sense than my story, by the way.
No. Yours makes way more sense.
I just know there's somebody in Final Fantasy IV that said you need a rat's tail, and me and my dad were playing that game when I was a kid, and we were stuck, and we were like, where the hell do you find this rat's tail? And I remember we tried to order a Final Fantasy IV player's guide, but it was years after, and we couldn't get one. And yeah, I figured out years later. I forget where you get it. Like, you think you steal it from enemy or drops from an enemy, or I don't remember what it was for, but I remember it was an issue for us. That's all. It stuck with me all these years, apparently. So there's your fun fact that nobody asked for. I didn't even ask for it. It just started coming out. I opened my mouth and the word just came out of my mouth. So,
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Barry, as a guy who played many Final Fantasies. Master never shows up again, does it?
Master as in
The monk evolution, because like it's not
Evolution?
in 11.
no, I don't think so. You can master classes like in Final Fantasy V when you get them
Yeah.
all the way there, become mastered, and you can then do it in 11 as well. But no, I don't think that ever does appear. It might be in a tactics, but
Okay, I don't think it is. It's not in the first tactics, that's for sure. Pretty sure, because I had the tactics guide when I was a kid, and I used to flip through that and read all the job classes all the damn time for some reason. I just thought it was so cool, and look at all the maps. Like, oh, you move here, you do this.
I'm
I was a strange
curious
kid
now.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I used to get like the Nintendo Powers or like any of the old magazines that would have maps of Metroid, but I couldn't play Metroid
Well,
games.
I think a lot of the stuff too, like the wizards, like White Wizard, Black Wizard, Red Wizard, those didn't really show up again. They just left
No,
those
I guess
pages.
not. I just don't think about them since it's almost the same thing. But yeah, you are right.
Yeah,
Those
so
don't come back either.
I think that they probably did separate them out as they got more used to the system they could work with.
Yeah. There's all the jobs have had different evolutions as have gone on. I mean, even Summoner was originally called Caller and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I mean, I'll always think of Monk originally as Black Belt and Warrior as always Fighter because that's how they started for me
Yeah.
and most of us in the United States. It started at the beginning.
Like when I remember when I did play this game on the Origin collection, like when you see Garland, I was like, oh yeah, Garland, like in Final Fantasy IX. That was my reference to Garland, which is a reference to this game.
Which is a reference. I mean, there's so many references that they've used to this game, and I think one of the coolest ones. And I don't know if you've experienced this or not, but if any of you have ever played Dissidia Final Fantasy, which is a fighting game for PSP that was for the first 12 Final Fantasy games. If you've never played it, it's an awesome game and you should. But if you played it, have you beaten it? Like, have any of you guys ever seen like the ending of Dissidia, the original, the first?
No, I bought it,
No.
but I've never played it.
I was very
unfortunately.
bad at it.
So the whole premise of Dissidia is all the characters are in this world and they have to fight for chaos again or shoot, why can't I think of her name now? I can't think of her name now. But anyway, so they're fighting, and at the end, when you finally win, the heroes are sent back, and they all appear like on this hill. At least the first 10, because Shantotto was a bonus character, and 12 didn't have a fighter or a hero in the first game. And retroactively, starting with Tidus going backwards, they all say a line or two in reference to their game, and they wind up disappearing back to their world. But because you go back 10-1, you eventually wind up on the Warrior of Light. And he's just kind of like there alone, and he just decides, all right, and he turns around and he starts walking down the hill, and the camera pans, and you see that the hill he's walking down leads right to Corneria of Final Fantasy I, and it's a reference to the original title screen, and it's just so beautiful that everyone gets put back to FF1's world, and they all go back to their own universe except for Warrior of Light, who's already home. I just thought that was such a nice callback to FF1 and where it all started, because it was an anniversary game, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth just looking up on YouTube. That scene is so beautiful, and of course the crystal theme starts playing. It's just a great thing. It was neat to see, like they haven't forgotten their roots, and for those of us that did start with one, and it is ingrained in their childhood, especially that title screen, because it was such a cool callback.
It's nice when they put those callbacks in games.
Oh yeah, and done tastefully, not just there for the sake of it being there. But
yeah, make it make sense.
Well, I mean, this game has a lot of callbacks with the added stuff that was removed from the Pixel remaster, like my boy Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh is in this one.
In one of the bonus bonus
I should've did it
dungeons.
then.
Yeah, Gilgamesh. The Gilgamesh is a lot of like things later on, like the Phantom or the Doom Train from 6 is there.
Yeah.
Rubicante from 4 is there.
Man, now I regret not doing those. Damn it! I was just
Shinru from 5 is there. Typhon from 6 is there.
man. Now you're making me regret things.
Ultros from 6 is there.
Yeah.
Uncle Alti.
Yeah. So like this is what I'm saying. Like it sucks that these were removed. Cagnauzo from 4 is also there. Barbarcia from 4 is there. So like it sucks that
Does suck.
they took this out of the Pixel remaster, because it is references, and it's specifically like a lot of those are there for fan service. Totally get that.
That's
But
fine.
but Gilgamesh is canonically the only real character that actually hops dimensions. Gilgamesh being there would totally make sense. He's on a quest for Bartz, and he winds up in Final Fantasy I's world, because that's the whole point of Gilgamesh. He's always looking for Barts through Dimension. And it just became it's a very big recurring character. For those that don't know, even in Dissidia, he references, he winds up coming into Barts. And as lately as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that just came out this year, Gilgamesh is there and referencing, I'm looking for my Warrior of Light, referencing his quest for Barts. Even like Final Fantasy Type 0, Gilgamesh appears. Like he's just a recurring character at this point, like Sid. And they retroactively put him into Final Fantasy 1 and then with Pixel Remaster removed him again.
Well, I'm looking through the whole list of the bosses from those dungeons. So in the Earth Gift Shrine, you had the two-headed dragon, Ahriman, Cerberus, and Echidna. And Echidna's hanging from the ceiling, of course.
Yes.
Hellfire Chasm had Cognazo, one of the bosses from Final Fantasy IV.
It's the four
Actually,
fiends.
all of them. Yeah,
it's
all
the
of
four
them. The four
fiends
from Final Fantasy IV.
That's cool.
Abarica,
You're fine. Just four fiends. I don't know how to say them either.
Scarmiglione.
So I wouldn't try.
Life Spring Grotto, the third of them. Let's see, you had, because I got to go through the pages, Gilgamesh, Atomos, Omega, and Shinryu.
They're all from Final Fantasy V.
That's really cool. I really do appreciate stuff like that.
And then the other one's from 6.
Yes, probably. Let me see. Yeah, because you did mention the Phantom Train or the Doom Train.
It's Doomgaze, Typhon,
Orthros, Death Gaze, yes, and Phantom Train.
Yeah, it's all Final Fantasy VI stuff.
Oh,
which,
man,
again,
I would have
really
been in
cool.
fucking just geeking out. Damn it.
Exactly. And then that's why I said this content exists, and then they take it out of the Pixel Remaster, and it sucks because it exists.
Just leave it there. Like, just convert it. Like, whatever you do, the art.
See, Orthros, that was that lecherous octopus in...
Ultros.
Don't tease the octopus, kids. So, yeah.
Ultros is another one of those recurring characters now that he appears in many games.
So much. I just love Final Fantasy VI. I could talk about that game I have once.
One thing, going back to the whole legacy of Final Fantasy 1, which I find really interesting, is if you look at all the games that have come since that incorporate characters from other games, Dissidia, the Theater Rhythm games, the World of Final Fantasy, stuff like that are like the anniversaries. Every game has their main characters. 3 usually is an Onion Knight, even though they did make characters like Luneth and stuff in the remake, and I wish they would just use those instead of just the generic Onion Knight. But for Final Fantasy 1, it has no main protagonist, and they created this Warrior of Light as the icon, which is kind of interesting. And whenever there's another character needed, it's always Princess Sarah. Like World of Final Fantasy has Princess Sarah. Theater Rhythm also has Princess Sarah. Like whenever they need a second hero, there's no Mage of Light or anything like that. It's just Warrior of Light and Sarah. And it's just kind of weird. Like I feel like Final Fantasy 1 kind of gets the short end of the stick because they could bring some of the other characters in.
Yeah.
That is kind of strange.
That's good still. And regardless, it is... You thought they made a grand game thinking it'd be the Swanson, but it ended up saving the company.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just funny, like they've never gone ahead and incorporated the other characters or the other warriors into something else. And the Warrior of Light is always warrior class.
All the games for the longest time, I think almost every one of the games some of the early games consisted of the 4 elements with the exception of 2.
Yeah, that was a theme.
Yeah, always a theme. 1 had the 4 elements, 3 had the 4 elements, 4 had the 4 elements, 5 had the 4 elements.
6 doesn't, I'm pretty sure.
6, I don't think does.
No, 6 doesn't, 7 doesn't. Because 6 starts going in a different direction.
9 brings them back.
Yeah.
But it's just, it works so well.
Well, it's standard. I mean, anytime you see the elements, it's in a lot of games. It's not just Final Fantasy. It's just it's almost stereotypical at this point. I mean, you might as well, you're going to have fire, you're going to have water, you're going to have wind, you're going to have earth, you're going to have heart. It's just the way it's going to be in most of these games, If you collect them all,
their powers combined.
That's just the fun of it. It's just, it's used a lot, even with the summons. I mean, the main summons are of those elements for the most part. They do have, Ramu with lightning and Shiva with ice. I find it funny that Wind didn't have a main summon really until 11.
And what is Wind summon?
Garuda. Oh
Garuda-
yeah, the
Garuda was
green.
just a bird enemy in previous games until 11, and then she's used again in 14 and in 16, and it's like, yeah, now she's like the default wind. But beforehand, there really wasn't a default wind like Leviathan, no anything else.
You had Pandemonium in 8, and that didn't stick. I don't remember who we even have in 9 that does wind.
And there's multiple of every class or every like type, but like if the generic list, if you look down, and 6 or 16 uses the generic list. I mean, Leviathan is DLC, but the generic list, Freed, Shiva, Ramu, Titan, Leviathan, Garuda, and then the higher ones, Bahamut, Odin, Alexander, and Phoenix. But yeah, it's interesting that.
And you never saw Knights of the Round again.
No, it was just a one thing. I mean, Final Fantasy 12 used all the summons from Tactics and stuff because of Evilise. Those never really appeared again in the main line.
I really need to play 12 one day. I know I'm missing out.
You know what was also beautiful of this game? They had a terrific time loop.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, because I forgot about that.
That's the whole crux of the game. How'd you forget about that?
There's a lot happened since I beat this game in this episode. So.
Well, the time loop you don't discover until the end of the game.
Yeah, the end of the game, yeah. And I thought that was brilliant as a kid. You fight Garland. The game makes it seem like going and rescue Princess Sarah at the beginning and stopping Garland is the game. And then obviously that's when you get to cross the bridge and the actual title screen happens and you realize, oh, this is just the beginning of this grand adventure. But then to bring it back home to the Chaos Shrine and Garland is the main villain this whole time, like I was like, I see what you did there. You subverted our expectations and then subverted them again by the end of it. And I thought that was really smart.
It was like the game was a bunch of mini quests to make up the big quest.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, really what drew people in, too. You kept moving forward and you kept finding new things that, well, it's part of your quest, so you might as well do it. Each area got help or saw something. And, of course, we also had to deal with either brilliant or malicious tricks or unintended tricks. I mean, let's face it, the Hall of Titans, which is what I was trying to refer to in my intro there. One step, attack. One step, attack. One step, attack.
Yeah, that was annoying.
But it really was good for building up your levels.
I was wondering why that happened. I remember that. I was like, this is weird. That keeps happening. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah. And, of course, they do subvert some things because, let's face it, you have to go back. You have to leave the dungeon after you beat the vampire because you need a rod to open up the lower part. And to do that, you need to give a ruby to a titan to get him to move so you can get it.
Hey, at least it wasn't a ruby from an antlion, so hey.
Yeah, well, for the ruby for an antlion, you got to deal with a spoony bard.
I just remember that antlion beat the shit out of me when I was a kid, and I hated him. That's why I bring it up. But no, I liked the little giants NPCs you'd walk around. Even they weren't giants, but I liked them. I thought they were cool. I also love the dragons have like a little town kind of thing where Bahamut is. I really like that. I love dragons.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is cool.
What did you guys think of one of the major characters you're introduced to early on after you cross that bridge with Matoya and Matoya's cave with all the brooms talking backwards?
I was thinking a Disney song should be playing in the background, but I liked it.
I was thinking of Disney too.
little Fantasia.
Yeah, you think of the Sorcerer's Apprentice when you see that.
I was like, as a kid, to have the dialogue at first, we didn't recognize it. I was like, wait, what? What is going on? And then when you realize they're all talking backwards, I'm like, that's really cool. And it's interesting because playing that as a kid, like Matoya's theme, it was a beautiful theme and very, only heard in her cave. And what's interesting is years later, decades later of playing that game in the expansion of Heavensward for Final Fantasy XIV, Matoya returns. And Matoya's there in her cave with the brooms, and that theme is playing. And it was like core memory unlocked. It was unbelievable that I experienced that. I'm sure others did too. And I love to see those, like how ingrained this game gets into you when you experience it as a kid, and how much of it is still passed on into other games and referenced, and it still holds up.
Yeah, and she's became a bit of an iconic character if you think about it.
She did. Because she was one of the first major characters you deal with once the adventure starts, and you needed to go to her, and it was impactful because you didn't have an experience like that. It was what's this? Where's this cave over here?
You can see all sorts of things. Like some people have reimagined her over the years too.
Oh yeah, and that's
just wondering.
I'm
just wondering something else if I can find an image of her.
I also want to say the music was really good in this game. I'm a guy who's notorious for playing without music. I had music on sometimes for this game because I just enjoyed it, and it brings back old memories.
I mean, you have the first appearance of many themes like the Crystal theme and Fanfare and everything like that have stuck around. So
I'm very particular about my music. If it isn't something from my childhood, I'm not as interested, unfortunately, with video game music. But this, I
now I found it. Oh, I was just trying to look it up, and I looked up. Yep, there it is.
Okay.
A little bit of a disservice to her. I mean, if you look at, they have a picture of, on the wiki, they actually have pictures of the characters that showed up in Captain N.
Oh God.
No. Oh no.
Oh God.
Actually,
do I want to look at that?
Probably if Captain N, I went from
Probably
interested
not.
to.
Yeah, the Captain N isn't canon though.
No, it's not canon. I mean, let's face it, that was one of the ones. I mean, I'm looking up Astos now because he also showed up in there.
Yeah, there's the Captain N. God, it looks like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah. And then, of course, I looked up Astos, and, in disguise, he looks like a monk. But his true form, too cartoony, if you think about it.
I was about to bring up Astos because I love that whole quest where you go in like the most dilapidated castle, and the king is like, "Oh, this dude Astos stole something from me. Go get it." And you go get it. He's like, "I'm Astos," and it's like, well, yeah, obviously you're living in the most dilapidated castle, bro. Like, you got fucking swamps in here, man.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, he does that in order to throw you off.
I thought he was cursed or something too, but I wasn't paying a lot of attention.
I mean, let's face it. How many games that's another trope? I'm not the bad guy. I was victimized by the bad guy. Oh wait, I am the bad guy. Ha ha ha!
Yeah,
I made you do what I wanted to. What I wanted you to do for me. Ha.
I know we already kind of talked about the ending, and then we quickly moved on. But I do want to say, like, in that ending with the time loop stuff, I love the melancholy nature of it, where these heroes are returning to their time, and like it kind of reads as like, oh, they're excited to be like, hey, we did it, we saved you guys. But then like a sentence is basically like, but no one's gonna remember because that happened, 2,000 years ago. So, and I really like that melancholic feel to it of just like these guys are heroes, but they're not gonna get the recognition that they should for stopping chaos because technically it never happened.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that you go back in time. I liked all that. Like, that also makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of want to play Stranger of Paradise now, and I don't know how I feel about that.
I am telling you, Stranger of Paradise, it is such a good Final Fantasy companion, like Final Fantasy 1 companion game. Like, it is, I love the story in that game. Like, unironically. It is very memey, but by the end of it, I was like, this is great. It's like a 9 out of 10 for me.
Oh, the game, the combat is great. The job system is great. But when you play, look at the description of every world, and it literally says like, oh, this level is based on the third sphere or whatever, which means it's based on Final Fantasy 3. And every game gets a level out of it. And it's not exactly like one for one kind of deal. It's just inspired by, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
This is the one game. This had the least amount of change when you actually took part in something. I mean, when you leave after getting the ship and then talking to the dwarves and defeating Astos and talking to the dwarves, you get opened up to a larger area. And then in order to reach the northern area, you need an airship. But when it comes down to things that change, it's actually very small. You only see a channel open up, which I guess is just
so cool.
Oh yeah, but I mean with the GBA and probably in pixelated, you actually get a cooler look to it because now you have the Mode 7 graphics.
Oh, I like the GBA. The only issue I had is I couldn't pull up the world map because of Steam Deck. Because it wanted you to hit select an A, and I couldn't figure out how to program it to where that would let me do it. So I had to download a map on my phone, look at the continent where I was in the game, and then figure it out on the map like a real person, like a real adventurer.
Select B.
Maybe that was the issue. Oops. Either way, I couldn't get it to work because I had a map on my phone. I downloaded it off the internet and used that to get around.
Right, I gotta find that meme again. With the three-headed dragon.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah. Just since we are briefly talking a little Stranger of Paradise, since it is FF1 adjacent, just so you're aware for the references, if this might entice you to even play it. The levels, there's the Chaos Shrine, based on the Chaos Shrine from FF1. Pravalka Sea Grot, which is based on Sastasha Sea Grot from Final Fantasy XIV. The Western Keep, which is based on Castle Palmacia from Final Fantasy II. Refereeing Wetlands, which is based on the Sunlit Waterscape from Final Fantasy XIII. Crystal Mirage, which is based on the Crystal Tower from FF3. The Flying Fortress, which is based on the Tower of Babel from Final Fantasy IV. The Wicked Arbor is based on the Evil Forest from Final Fantasy IX. Mount Gulg, which is based on Fire Cavern from Final Fantasy VIII. Hallowed Massif, based on Mount Gagazet from Final Fantasy X. Cavern of Earth, based on the Tomb of Wrathwell from Final Fantasy XII. Ruins of Machina, based on Ronka Ruins from Final Fantasy V. The Sunken Shrine, based on the Junon Underwater Reactor from Final Fantasy VII. The Ancient's Tower, based on Delphunc's Tower from Final Fantasy XI. Vigia's Court is based on the Citadel from Final Fantasy XV. And finally, the Terra Tortura, based on the Floating Continent from Final Fantasy VI. Every game gets an entire level.
Someday, I don't even have it yet on Steam, but at some point, I'll pick it up in one of the sales. I actually don't have Type O yet either, because I just never.
That's
had
a
to play
tough
that
game to
last
play.
I have it on Xbox One.
If you're one of those people that loves to grind and level up your party individually, you'll love Type O. But you have like 14 characters that you have to level up individually with 3 on a team, and everybody needs to be leveled because otherwise you will fail.
That might not. World of Final Fantasy, I've been interested in.
That's fantastic.
Okay, I want to buy it because a very stupid reason. The Xenogears is a playable character in it.
There you
I'm a
go.
sucker.
That game's great.
Okay, I'll have to pick it up. I mean, I love Final Fantasy stuff.
And they'll especially nail him in if they manage to get Marvel Snap in there.
But I just love Final Fantasy so much. Okay, you sold me on Stranger Paradise. If it eventually hits the $10 mark on Steam, or if I actually think I'm going to play it, I'll buy it for more. But okay, I got my interest.
It's on sale on PlayStation right now. I don't know the price though, but I saw it the other day.
Rather have it for Steam Deck if it runs.
Hey, that's fair.
Deck. Steam Deck is just for me like that perfect way to play games. So I really, really love Steam Deck. Highly recommend that system to people. I'm not even a mobile gamer, and I love that thing. So unsupported on Steam Deck, but that doesn't mean anything. So okay. Anything else you guys want to say about Final Fantasy?
I'm good. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah,
We definitely did cover a lot. I mean, we mentioned almost everything that makes this game such a great game.
A game that launched an amazing series. Oh, I do have a joke. When I was a kid, I've said this before, but I'll say it again on the show. When I was a kid, my dad used to make a joke with me. He's like, "Oh, Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 20," and I'd be irritated as like a 6-year-old. I'm like, "There's only 3, 1, 2, and 3 in Mystic Quest." I thot was a 1 or something, somehow to do with 1. But I was like, there aren't that many. They're never going to be that many. Little did I know. But I always remember that joke because he used to say that to me when I was a kid. And also a little did I know 3 was 6 and 2 was 4. Like, yeah.
There were already 6 at that point.
And I had no idea.
I mean, if you count the spin-offs, there's a ridiculous amount of Final Fantasy games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there really is. But that's another conversation. Hey, 3 13s right there. So to go with the amount of crazy shit they put out.
Well, there's a lot of sequels, and unfortunately, they don't all get brought over. Like Final Fantasy IV Pixel Remaster's there, which is great, but you know what's not there? The After Years and the interlude in between the two that was only in the PSP release.
So I bought that PSP release the day it came out. I was so excited. I got it. I started playing it. I still have yet to ever actually play Interlude or After Years. I got to the Dark Elf and I just turned off the game and never went back.
I was gonna say Final Fantasy IV is the best Final Fantasy. The After Years. No, Mike, this is science, okay? Like, you can't deny science.
Says something.
No. Anyway,
The U.S. government doesn't agree with your statement.
the after year when I'm president. God damn it!
Let's not talk about the whole politics.
I had to throw
But
that
I bought the after years because I love the world of 4, and the after years just failed to hold my attention
That's
on
what I
it, which
heard.
is it's a bummer because I was like, I want to see what these characters are up to now, and I lost interest in it so fast.
I did it on the WiiWare because that was the first time they were released in the States, was on WiiWare. So I bought digital games back then. So I for certain properties I will. But I played them, and it was an episodic game. So each chapter, different characters, and I loved it until the final chapter when every character comes together and the difficulty spike is insane.
Oh.
And it was like, but I'll tell you this: the After Years have some great, like beyond great character moments. Like if you've played 4, you know Kane Highwind. He's in the logo. You know his journey. You know how he's a bit of an ass and how he's confused and how he's used and manipulated. Well, it's cool as in the After Years he goes through his own discovery like Cecil did and winds up going into the same cavern and having the same realization and reflection on his life, and he actually becomes a holy dragoon, which I think is the only holy dragoon in the Final Fantasy series.
Cool.
That's cool.
I gotta someday. I gotta play that.
You know what? I have it on my tablet, but if it goes on sale on Steam Deck, I'll pick it up.
I like moments like that. It's like that's so cool because like it's such a reflection, and he's talking with like Theodore, who is Cecil and Rosa's kid, and it's kind of like he's like the uncle. At this point, and he's like, I did like so many terrible things in my youth, and I'm older and wiser now, and like reflecting back on life, and you feel for him because he got the shit end of the stick at the end of the day.
Do you think he reveals to Theodore ever that he's just like they're traveling along and he's just like, one time me and your dad bombed a town.
we destroyed everybody except for one kid.
Yeah.
That I wanted to kill.
Cool.
Maybe. Yeah, but again, things like that are lost. Like that was digital only, the only physicals on the PSP, and they didn't bring it back for the Pixel remaster. And that's like, it's silly. It's like the content exists. Bring it in. Bring it back.
Wait, does the After Years on Steam not include Interlude now?
I think Interlude is only on the PSP version. I could be wrong, but I think Interlude is exclusive, which sucks.
That does suck. I accidentally traded my copy of the PSP version of 4 in because I thought I had put it in the Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions case, and I'm a dumb little baby, and I was very bad at Final Fantasy Tactics, so I went and sold it, and then like a few weeks later I went to go play Final Fantasy 4 on my PSP, and the logo for Final Fantasy Tactics popped up, and I was like, uh-oh.
Well, at least you can buy it again. I mean, it does. You can get it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't include Interlude. He's right. The only way to play that is to have a PSP or sale. So
yeah, and that sucks because that's exclusive canonical Final Fantasy content that is stuck to one system, and that the Pixel remaster was the perfect time to bring that back. Make it a celebration. That's what the whole point of the Pixel remaster was, and instead it's forgotten about, like all the extra content that was added to all the games in the past.
Oh, and the Steam version of the After Years isn't it's a 3D remake.
Oh, they remade the After Years?
Just like the 4DS version, yeah.
So that's another different version because and I think the PSP version is a Pixel remake of the original version, which is the WiiWare version and the mobile version in Japan. Or it could be a mistake. It might be the same.
Yeah, because I bought it and I didn't realize that it doesn't matter. But I bought the 3D version of it. There's a 3D remake for Final Fantasy IV, which is the DS version, but I think it's DS, right?
Yeah, DS.
Yeah.
Yeah, on PC, and then they also have the After Years version of that on PC. I guess you need the original, you need the Pixel remaster if you want to play 4 pixely. Okay.
That's weird. Damn it, Square. This is why preservation's important. Bring it all in one system. Keep it simple. Or keep bringing it back, especially when you're going to do something like this.
Yeah,
well, let's face
all the versions.
Well, let's face it, we didn't get Final Fantasy 3 until they put the 3D port of it for the DS.
Yeah, Pixel Remaster is the first 2D version we're actually getting really here.
Which was a nice remaster.
Yeah.
I mean, I never completed the 3DS version, but
that was fun.
I have it. I never got through it, but then again, I got it the same year my daughter was born.
That would do it.
It was my it was a Christmas present from my wife, so I don't intend to part with that.
No, I would never. See, and that's where they keep redoing these games and remakes, and even with the remakes, as nice as they are, it's nice to have the original version. So I get what they did with the Pixel Remaster to bring back the original version, but just give us a choice. Give us a choice on the title screen. Original, remaster, or additional content, remix, if you will. And in 3 and 4's case, give us the 3D versions. Boom. Like, just make it a celebration. Put an option on you could do it. They just don't want to. And remember, this wasn't like, well, you know what? They only charged us $40 for this game. It was a budget game. This was released as an $80 digital, an $80 physical that launched at 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, got sold out instantly, is going for stupid prices, and the Asian English is the only way to get one at a reasonable price right now, and that's only on the Switch. So Square does not give two flying fucks about this game or about any of their games.
No, they don't.
Wait, they didn't. The Play Asia way is the only way to get a physical copy of it. Like there is no America.
No, he's right. There was one at first.
Yes, there is. Square Enix released a North American version for PS4 and Switch on their website exclusively at like 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern, sold out, and never decided to do a reprint. And those versions,
didn't know that.
Yeah, go on eBay. You'll find them. They're stupid expensive.
You'll find them.
I thought it was just like you get it digital only, but if you want a physical copy, you have to order through Play Asia. And I was like, I don't want to do that.
Wanting to be like, we want to make eBay rich. That's what they want.
Not only that, but they put a collector's edition with a lenticular slipcover that's only available in that collector's edition. That was $300, and that slipcover is amazing. It's got the characters doing the victory fanfare in lenticular, and again, it's sold out instantly and stupid prices right now. And the $80 that the Asian version is, that's the MSRP. That's what the English version was if you got it, or the digital.
How can you say stupid prices? It's only $1,500 or best offer on eBay right now.
Yeah, well, the PS4 version's even more expensive because there is no Asian English version because they canceled that. So the only way to get it physical on PS4 is the North American version.
It's only $1,500. You could only buy a crappy car for that price, and then you get a PS4 game. What a lucky one someone is, huh?
Yeah.
And thank you for all attending our recent episode of Gaming Gripes with Barry.
That's every time.
Do you think that this guy, like, it's like, oh, give me a best offer. Like, if I was like, hey, man, I'll send you pictures of my feet, like, you'd be like, sold.
I mean, what you want to say, like, I'll pay you $100, a little bit plus shipping. How about that? What you paid?
Right.
Well, you might even make a couple bucks.
Well, you're not gonna. First off, I mean that was retailed at $300. So anything under $300, they're not even.
Oh, retail $300. Okay, $1,500.
The collector's edition was $300. The retail was $80 for the standard.
Okay.
But the slipcover was only part of that collector's edition. It did not.
Hell, just the. Can't tell. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And see, so many people didn't even know it because they launched it at stupid o'clock in the morning, and they did the minimum. They did the bare minimum, and they sold out and so quickly. And for whatever reason, Square's like, oh, people wouldn't want our flagship title. Let's not print anymore. I mean, there's a demand for it clearly because they are selling at stupid prices. But Square's not. No, I don't think they're ever going to reprint them. They're just going to reprint the Asian Switch version and just be like, "Here, fine. If you want it that badly, play it." They don't care.
I'm glad I went digital for some random reason. So all right.
I'll be honest. I do kind of blame them for not reprinting it, but like the resale market for video games right now is just fucking ridiculous. Anyway, like even
atrocious.
Yeah, like. It's so bad. Like, even if they were reprinting it, people would be selling that collector's edition for $1,500 still.
But no one would buy it if they reprinted it. The only reason it's selling that high is because you have the North American minimum print is 1,000 copies for PlayStation. So there's only most likely only 1,000 copies of the ESRB PlayStation, and you have it be of one of the most popular franchises of all time, and the first 6 games. So anybody that's a physical collector, anyone that collects for PS4 or Switch, anyone that collects Final Fantasy games is going to want this, and there's only 1,000 copies. So there's more than 1,000 people that would want that, and that's the problem. That's why it's stupid. It's all supply and demand.
Or just put it up just put up a thing for pre-order, then you just
Open
get the
pre-order.
ones that sell, and then you make what you were already sold, and you make profit.
That would be brilliant if only they would do that. But they don't do that. A lot of companies don't. They're stupid. They just don't realize they don't look at it as valuable enough to please their fans. They don't care. The fans will buy it anyways. Whatever. Just like you said, open pre-order. It's a celebration game too for Final Fantasy. And they botched it so poorly.
Right. I think we should go to Shelf Stacker Box now. And Nate, why don't you go first?
This is going to go in the box because Square did not make enough physical copies of it. I just thought you could only buy it through Play Asia. Now I'm mad.
Now you're mad that you found that there's an ESRB version?
Yeah. I'm going to put this in the stack. I think this is... it's a phenomenal game, a phenomenal first effort. The amount of story from a game like this from 1987 that wasn't just like go save the princess. Like it has depth with its villain and stuff. This is gonna go in the stack. I'll probably revisit this game every once in a while. Just running new character. Wow, what a character party makeups. There we go. And never the 4 white mage because that sounds absolutely miserable.
If there was a trophy for it, it would have happened.
If there was a trophy, I did get the platinum for this game.
I know.
Which that probably feeds into I'm glad they didn't have that extra content because that would have been a fucking trophy and I would like, I don't want to do this.
Okay, and what about you, Richard?
This is definitely a shelf game for me. I mean, again, it's the legacy. It started the franchise. It has replay value. I mean, since I got it, I'm sure I've replayed it a few times on Game Boy. I mean, actually, this is the third save slot in the game that I actually have clear data on. But it does have that replayability. You can enjoy it each time you play it. And it has none of those frickin' Marlboros in it. So that's a definite plus. But yes, this is a shelf game for me.
Okay. And Barry?
Yeah, this is a shelf game. It absolutely deserves to be there. That's a wonderful game. Very, very important to my childhood. And it sparked my love for the Final Fantasy series. And if it wasn't for the Final Fantasy series, I never would have met my wife. So it will always be one of the most important series in the world to me. So it'll always be there. And whether I revisit it now or down the road or with my son, time will tell. But it's always got a spot in my heart.
All right. I'll go last. I'm going to put this on the shelf also. I had a great time playing this game. I was surprised how much fun I had with it. Like, I mean, it was just great to go back to. It felt so good in my hands, and I had so much fun, and music is amazing, and like everybody else said, like I love Final Fantasy, so I love what the series becomes. Hell, a lot of my favorite games are Final Fantasy games, and just meant so much to me as I grew up in gaming, because this is one of the first series of games that I was able to play because I couldn't play Donkey Kong, I couldn't play Mario because I wasn't good at platformers at the time, still not. But RPGs I could play, and that has made me the lifelong gamer I am now because of this series. So go on the shelf, love this game, and I'm happy that now this game is part of the podcast.
Well,
yeah. All right. And Richard, where can people find you at?
Well, you can find me up on YouTube, on my Twitch, on my YouTube channel, Rich KL, where I play through various games and franchises. In fact, Wednesday mornings I am working through the first 7 Final Fantasy games, although in a random order. Actually, I started with 7, but now I played through 3, and I'm working on 2. Who knows, by the time this pops up, I may be done with 2 and moving on to a different one. Who knows? By the time this might be up, if I'm done when I'm done with 2, I may be playing Final Fantasy 1 pixelated. So
this will be up May 7th.
Like I said, I may be playing it. But I also have stuff up on various fan fiction sites like fanfiction.net, Archive of Our Own, and even on Comic Vine, where I have various stuff that I've been writing and need to get back to, but my life's been so crazy right now. But I'm hoping to get back to that soon, at least at the time of this recording.
Okay. And Nate, where can we find you at?
Hey, you can find me on TikTok at NateDoesComedy79. And one of these days, now that I'm finished with FF7 Rebirth and I have free time again, I'm going to put more comedy up there. But
Good.
yeah, go follow. It's funny, unbiased opinion, a review of myself. I'm funny.
All right. And Barry, where can people find you at?
You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Fuse over at Hawk Hellfire. You can find my podcast, Nintendo Fuse, at nintendofuse.com and youtube.com/NintendoFuse every other Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we go live. You could also find us on social media at Nintendo Fuse, as well as Premium Edition Games, where you can go at premiumeditiongames.com. You can pre-order our latest series of titles. We have Series 8, we've got Scarlet Tower, we've got Gordian Quest, and we've got Tadpole Treble Encore, as well as a bunch of other in-stock games that you could grab right now. These are physical releases, complete on cart. And you could also find us on Twitter at Premium Edition 1 and everywhere else at Premium Edition Games.
Right, and you want to support the show, we do have Patreon. For a little dollar, you can vote in our Patreon polls. You'll see a link in the show notes. Every month we have a different poll. And you can join our Discord. You'll see a link in the show notes of that, too. I want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Helena at Hellhasphere. You can follow her on TikTok, Instagram, Twitch. You'll see a link to the link tree. And give a shout out to a gamer looks at 40 with Bill Tucker. He's on the show all the time. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, YouTube. I think that's everything I need to say. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good one.